Hi, this is Mr. Kays, and you've turned into broadcast 32.4b. 32.4b. We are firmly in World War II, and now we're seeing the Allies land in Europe and start to push the Nazis back. They started in Africa and then moved their way up Italy, but there's going to be a time when the Allies are going to invade the coast of France. When do they do it? Well, they're going to do it in 1944. And it was called D-Day invasion. It was codenamed Operation Overlord. Operation Overland. Overlord. Now think about this. You've got British, American, Canadian, and French troops on British soil. And there's going to be a coordinated effort by all those allies to land on the coast of France and push the Nazis back. The Nazis didn't know specifically where along the coast, so they beefed up their fortifications. The Allies picked a beach in northern France called Normandy. Normandy was invaded from England. Normandy was invaded from England. Paris eventually was liberated. Paris was liberated. Later, France, Belgium, Luxembourg were freed. France, Belgium, Luxembourg. Luxembourg. So land is now going to fall to the Allies' control as the Nazis retreat across France. But the Nazis are going to have one last gasp effort to push the Allies back. It was called the Battle of the Bulge in 1944. It was a Nazi counterattack that failed. Nazi counterattack fails. They call it the Battle of the Bulge because our lines would bulge back, but it did not snap. The Nazi counterattack fails. And the Germans retreat. The Germans retreat. They're going to retreat across the Rhine River. Here's a picture of Dwight David Eisenhower just before the D-Day invasion. He is a very inspirational general, and he can work with British, French, Canadian, Australian troops, but he was picked to be the coordinating general for the European Theater of Operations, well-respected general. So the Allies are going to cross the Rhine River. They crossed the Rhine River, R-H-I-N-E. They crossed the Rhine River in 1945. Most of the bridges were blown by the Nazis to slow the Allies, but a couple of them were not blown. So tanks and trucks pour across the Rhine River into German soil. And the Germans are going to make one last stand in defense of Germany. Berlin was surrounded from Allied and Russian troops. Berlin was surrounded by Allied and Russian troops. The Americans and the Russians met in Berlin and shook hands. That was the last days of the war. Before surrendering, Hitler commits suicide. Hitler commits suicide, and Germany surrenders. Hitler commits suicide, and Germany surrenders in 1945. So VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, was May 9th, 1945. May 9th, 1945. So the Nazi threat was over. The Italian fascist threat was over. Who's left? Well, half a world away, it's the Japanese. And we saw the Battle of Coral Island, the Battle of the Coral Sea, in the previous note-taking, where the Japanese lost 4 aircraft carriers. The Battle of Leyte Gulf in 1945 was significant in that Japan loses its navy as a fighting force. Japan loses its navy as a fighting force. And as Japan gets desperate, they have volunteer airplane pilots called kamikazes, Japanese suicide pilots. They'd shoot their machine guns, they'd drop their bombs, and then they'd crash their planes into the ships, the American ships. They were going to commit suicide in defense of their country. They were not coming back. And I read somewhere where they even welded the cockpit shut so the Japanese pilots could not turn around. They could not change their mind. They had to destroy their planes. Further battles. Iwo Jima and Okinawa bring Allies close to the Japanese home islands. Battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa bring the Allies closer to the Japanese home islands. And it was only a matter of time that atomic bombs, or A-bombs, dropped on Hiroshima, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki, Nagasaki. Hiroshima and Nagasaki forced Japan to surrender. A-bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki forced Japan to surrender. That's the end of the war. I know we've gone over a lot, but that, in a nutshell, is the war. This is Mr. K's with 32.4b. I'm out.